started this page about a year and a half ago, to kind of just talk more to people about the stuff that I actually find really cool in cancer care, because so much is changing. And it's kind of one of those fields where people have an impression of what it really is, but once you're there and you're seeing a lot of the amazing achievements that we're doing, it changes the way you perceive the specialty. And that's one of the reasons I started the channel, is because I kind of want to just get people excited about the future of oncology.
Yeah, and today we'll be kind of sharing about that, correct? Some certain different types of treatments and things like that.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, perfect. We're so glad to have you here. If you're new here, new to my channel, my name is Nicole. I'm the oncology dietitian. Today we're going to be talking about nutrition, cancer treatment, what Paul loves about being an oncologist. If you have any questions, you're welcome to drop them. I mean, for either one of us, we're here to answer your questions. It's kind of an open discussion. I guess I'd like to just have you start, if that's okay. You know, what do you love about your job? How have you influenced cancer survivors? Do you mind just sharing a little bit more about what you love about it?
I think one of the main reasons I got into oncology is because of its innovation. If you were to look at all the new publications throughout medicine, there is no match for what's being published in oncology. Just our What's New section, for example, in our main resources, it's like 3 or 4 times the length of every other specialty. So it's a good thing. You want to hear that. You want to hear that a lot of cancer research is being done.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it's great. It's absolutely great. And you know, that makes the job a little bit hard, because there's so much new information coming out that even cancer doctors have to subspecialize. It's hard to just be a general cancer doctor. Sometimes you have to be a lung cancer doctor, because so many new things are coming out just for lung cancer every few months. And so that's definitely at the top of why I like my job, because of how fast it moves and the innovation. I think that being in the cancer field, you're a benefactor of a lot of good energy from society. A lot of people have someone they lost from cancer. There are walks and donations and societies that are all centered around cancer. And so again, it's just a good energy. You do deal with people who are having the most serious, most intimate moments of their life, where they're being met with such a diagnosis. But a good portion of the time, you help people actually get into remission, and you help people through their journey, and you get to be that guy that met them 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago, and they say, hey, you were that person who saw me when I was diagnosed with this leukemia or this lung cancer, and we made it through.
You give me goosebumps.
It's a feeling that you don't really know the meaning of that. Till you go through it a couple of times, till you actually see that you've made a difference in this person's life. That's amazing. That's amazing, So, and you kind of do something similar, because people, all they want to talk to me when they see me is, what should I eat? How should I change my life? Because no one wants to hear about, we need to give you this medication, this chemotherapy, this immunotherapy. People are like, hey, what's broccoli going to do for me? And I'm like, I need to know more about what's broccoli going to do, because that's something we don't really get.
No, absolutely. Well, and we're such a great team, because you provide the medication that cures them, and I come in to get them nutrition to keep them strong, to attend what you prescribed. So it's so important. I don't want them showing up to treatments, or once treatments end, with no nutrition guidance, because it really does make an impact on their whole bodies, and the wrong information can sadly make really negative impact. So that's a lot of what I do. Hey, what are the facts? What's up to date? Because there is so much misinformation, like every single month, for cancer survivors to navigate. So I did want to ask you a question. I guess we can talk about broccoli first, and then I want to ask you a question about research. So you were mentioning you were reading more up on certain individual foods, and you were really excited about broccoli in particular, right?
So I'll tell you how this came about. I'm in my last year, so my fellowship is a little bit more elective focused. That means I don't have to do as many core months. So I've started to take alternative medicine in oncology. And one of the people I rotated with was a naturopath, but specialized in oncology. And a couple of people in that practice focus very heavily on just food as medicine. And one of the books they had me read was How Not to Die. I'm not sure if you're a fan of that book, or
not particularly a fan of all of it, but there is some good information in there. Just to be transparent.
That's kind of the same sentiment that I carried. It's almost impossible to live the way that book is recommending, but it does make you aware of certain things that really make you think differently. There was one study, if I'm remembering correctly, about how there were two cohorts of smokers, but one cohort just had more broccoli in their diet, controlled for other factors. And that cohort who had broccoli in their diet had a 40% less chance of having lung cancer. I don't know if I'm butchering that study, but it was something along that line. And that opened my mind. That really is huge, because when we talk about chemotherapy and immunotherapy, things are getting improved if there's like a 10% reduction. So now you're telling me that there is this thing that I could just buy in my grocery store that's going to be even more efficacious. So that got me to really start to think more about nutrition.
Yep. Yeah. So it's kind of, you didn't butcher it. What you shared is true, that if someone's doing more, I mean, that exact study, I'd have to go look at it. But what's basically going on is people who are falling, if they have a diet that's lower in fiber, they don't have very many plant foods in their diet, they will not be able to lower their cancer risk as well. So plant foods, I mean, they say eat a rainbow, and that's because a rainbow, so all different colors of plant foods, fruits, and veggies, will contain different phytochemicals and different antioxidants. So they're all going to have these different amazing things to give you. So that's why I wouldn't want you to just have like one color. Right. And then also white and browns in there too, like garlic and onions and potatoes, that's also in there as well. So the more you have, you're going to be, and the way kind of like, and speaking of broccoli, there's a certain, is it sulfur? What is it? Sulfurane?
Sulforaphane. I can't say it either. I have to look it up.
That will come out specifically from broccoli. So this is like food science for you. So when you damage broccoli, so I don't want you throwing your broccoli in your kitchen, but let's say we're chopping it or putting it in a stew. When you do that, it releases that anti-cancer property. How did you say it? You said it really well. Sulforaphane?
I think it's sulforaphane, but I could be saying it wrong too.
That's really perfect. Yeah. I love it. So that will come just specifically from broccoli, but it's kind of the way that we prepare it. So you have to damage it. And then once you damage it, it takes time for, I believe there's a compound and then another enzyme. There's like two things that have to interact to create that anti-cancer property, the one that you just listed off. So if you want to get the, most bang for your buck when using broccoli, what you can do is chop it up and then wait about 30 minutes for the anti-cancer property basically to come about, and then go ahead and use it in your stir fry or things like that.
That's something I found super fascinating, because I think I just read that recently too. It's not a matter of just taking the broccoli and putting it in the soup. You actually have to cut the broccoli and let the broccoli kind of have that compound get released. And you're saying a half hour, and then you put it in. How often are people actually waiting a half hour after this?
They're not, right? Because it's the enzyme and the compound have to work together in order to yield the sulfurane.
Yep.
Okay. So
I think you got it.
So yeah. Yep. So I don't got it, but you got it. So what you can do to bypass that, like certain things, like I believe it's broccoli sprouts that you can add to, or like mustard seed, you can add to your broccoli, and it has, I think it's the enzyme that's needed in order to yield that product. So if you don't let the broccoli be chopped and just kind of sit for 30 minutes to yield that anti-cancer property, you can add mustard seed, or I think it was like some type of a sprout or something, and I can always put it in the caption too after our live, to help to give that enzyme that it needs to come about quicker. So that's a different way. And I love that you're making that point, because certain fruits and veggies will emit more antioxidants and phytochemicals whether they're cooked or not.
Yes.
So there's a cheat sheet. I have some information on that, and I can also put that in the caption as well. But it's good to have a variety of ways of cooking, chopping, eating raw. It doesn't have to just be raw. It doesn't have to all be cooked, but having a combination that will yield the best, in addition to just color, like even bell peppers. There's so many different colors of bell peppers. I want you to be having all those different colors, because then you'll get a wide variety of antioxidants and phytochemicals, which will protect your cells during treatment or help you reduce risk of cancer after.
Right. And actually, one of the videos that I've had do very well on this platform was a video talking about tomatoes. I think specifically tomato paste with prostate cancer, and there's that decreased linkage between the two. And a couple of comments I got, it kind of pertain to what you said, that if you cook the tomato, they actually release more likely.
Yeah.
It's not so much eating the raw tomato, but then other vegetables or fruit, if you don't cook them, they release more of the compound.
Correct.
So I thought that was super interesting, that, wow, like even the way you actually prepare the food. And then again, today was the day I found out that even about cutting the broccoli before you cook it matters.
I know.
I wonder what other vegetables or fruits are like this as well.
I know. No, and it's been high maintenance too. You probably would want to just add some mustard seed, but then of course maybe some people don't like that. But yeah, you can get creative, and I think what we want to do is have a variety. You don't want to just have just cooked or just canned or just fresh fruits and veggies, trying to have a variety. But if you want to get really specific with it, there's a lot of different things. Like, so for example, American Institute for Cancer Research, they've compiled the most well-researched plant foods.
Okay.
So yes, all plant foods will help you reduce cancer risk. The research is there, but there's specific ones that have been studied more. So like, for example, like flax seeds. Right now, seeds are a really big thing. There's hemp seeds, heart seeds, flax seeds. But with flaxseed, what's important is you have to crush it in order to get those omega-3 fatty acids, those
I saw that
anti-inflammatory.
too. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I've had
Because
people like,
if you just eat flaxseed by itself, you're just gonna pass it and that's it. Whereas you have to crush it for it actually to get
yes,
absorbed more
yes,
beneficial. Right? Yes.
exactly. And so, but then with hemp and chia seed, you don't have to do that. But like someone's like, well, I really love flaxseed, and yes, you're going to get the fiber from the flaxseed, so it'll help you reduce colon cancer risk. But you want to do some ground up to get out that omega-3. That's really important. Another thing that can kind of change up during cancer treatment, depending on where you're getting like your radiation to your bowel, it can damage or completely remove that lactase enzyme. So
Right.
you're not lactose intolerant, because during radiation, based on where you're being radiated in your gut, you may lose that enzyme and become lactose intolerant just during radiation. A lot of people don't know that either. So it's just really important to have a dietitian on your team or work with a dietitian, because there's so many things that we can do. So we optimize your treatment. My goal is no missed doses, no reduced doses, no missed treatments. And so I want all that for the client, the patient. So good nutrition will help them get there. But those are kind of some playful ways that I've heard recently with nutrition.
What have you seen helps people with side effects? Like, first of all, when the patients come to you, what is your bread and butter? Are people coming in very fatigued, very nauseous? And what are your go-tos? Like, what are the things that you almost want to put every patient on?
Yeah, every patient on. Okay, so for during treatment, unless their doctor's like has them on some sort of restriction, so I want them to start eating more protein and I want them to start moving more. So sedentary lifestyle will really hinder treatment outcomes, and it'll that cancer-related fatigue is so major, and what will really help them overcome that is more movement. It's not about resting all the time, not pushing like beyond your limits or anything, but too often I'll have, they come to me, they're in bed for days after treatment, they have all that fatigue, they don't feel motivated. And once they start moving and exercising more, they start to have more energy. And then protein's huge, because you probably already know. So protein's being uptake by the body, then it's being uptake by the healthy cells that are injured trying to repair, and then it's also being taken up by the cancer. So that and even some certain cancers will become hypermetabolic, so their metabolism shoots up. So now that not only do they need more protein, but they need more calories. So weight maintenance, emphasizing protein, movement, and then just making sure that they're not taking supplements that could interrupt the treatments. That's a big thing for them, to be talking with you as their doctor, like, hey, these are the supplements I have. What do you think? Talking with the dietitian to see if there's any risk factors. Some supplements are okay, but there'll also be a lot that could interrupt treatment, and I don't want them to do that.
What's a common culprit of that? I'm wondering, what's a supplement that you commonly see that does?
So the turmeric supplements, and it one time affected my clients. Their ALT, AST was all over the place. They got off that and it got better. I had another client, their B vitamin was out of control, admitted, their liver was all out of whack, and then they got off these supplements, and then it resolved. So, supplements will have their place. During cancer treatment, you may get iron deficient. Post-cancer treatment, vitamin D, calcium, is important for bone health. I'm fine with that. But it's when a lot of times it'll be like the turmeric supplements. I'd rather you just use the root, do like, turmeric lattes, a turmeric oatmeal, something really cool like that instead of the supplement. And then just kind of whatever's like cleanse, like certain kind of cleanses. You really want to support your body's natural detox, urinate, defecate. You don't want to take all these, different pills and things like that. I'll see that a lot. And then just certain regimens with just like really high dose, like immunity boosting. You'll see that a lot, like immune boosting with vitamin C is really important, but kiwi is going to be really high in your vitamin C. Everyone always thinks of like oranges. Well, strawberries, kiwi, those are going to be really high in vitamin C. I want you to have more of that, because you're not going to reach those toxic levels.
Because that's a common thing I see, is that people want the pill. It's simple. I can just go pick it up at my local vitamin store. But the actual whole foods, like the point of turmeric, right? There are amazing studies, from what I understand, that show turmeric does wonders for cancer.
Yep.
But if you're just taking the actual curcumin pill, which is the active compound, you're actually missing out on the full turmeric, dose, whatever it is. But if you eat the natural way, the whole foods way, that has more
Mhm.
benefit. Same with like what you just said.
And
Instead of taking that
safer.
vitamin C pill, if you're eating the whole food, whatever it might be, kiwi, orange, that has more benefits because it's not
Yes.
just vitamin C that you're getting from this.
Yes, so many more benefits, and the fiber and also the hydration and then just enjoying it, you know. So there's so many more benefits that you get from, you know, the whole fruits and veg and even the spices. Just go to the grocery store. But I understand what you're saying. They want to do everything they can, and pills seem, you know, easier or more organized, you know, when really they just need to grocery shop and get more fruits and veggies in. Typical American gets about 15 grams of fiber a day.
15.
And then if you're a cancer survivor not feeling your best, you might even be eating less. So now you're getting a lot less fruits and veggies, and that really is what help support your immune system. That's what really help you give you a lot more energy, is having more fruits and veggies versus like the pills.
Right, right.
Yep.
And then again, like I think not just the compound, but the fiber, the other things that we're missing from those fruits and vegetables. There's it's just, you know, one of my favorite things to do now is to just pick a vegetable that day or a fruit and say,
Mm-hmm.
what are the anti-cancer properties and studies of blueberries? And just see
Oh,
what comes up.
yes.
What are, pick a different one today, garlic. And you just,
Yes.
you start to realize the whole eating the rainbow thing. Um,
I know,
like
right?
I have nieces and nephews now, and I just will instill that into them. Like every time I see them, like, what does it mean to eat the rainbow? Give me like 5 vegetables in every color, and just see
Yeah.
where
Do
it
they
goes.
eat them too?
They do. They've gotten better. They've gotten better.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. And that exposure too. And then someone just commented the vitamin C IV. Yeah. Same thing with those IVs. I know those were more popular. I don't know if they're as popular, but same thing. You're just high dose micronutrients. We need to just go make a fruit salad. You
Yes.
know, go
Yes.
have some kiwis, some oranges, some apples, and in different colors. It's going to be better.
And
Um,
sorry, one of the
yeah.
things that I was reading recently is just nuts. You pointed it out, right?
Yes.
So not just flax seeds, but even walnuts.
Yes.
They're like, what do you, when people ask you about nuts? I imagine it's a double-edged conversation because maybe they'll be worried about the high calories, maybe they'll be worried about the fat content,
Right.
but then the reality is nuts are incredible. They are so nutrient dense and they do incredible things for the human body.
Oh my gosh, they're the best. That's just a great snack too. So, you know, to fill up the what's going to empty out of your stomach the slowest is going to be fat and fiber. Those two things are going to be in nuts. My favorites are walnuts because the high omega-3 content. You really can have any type of nut; they're all good. You want to choose ones that are going to be lower in sodium.
Okay.
You know, because a high salt diet over a lifetime, it can increase risk of stomach cancer over a lifetime. But my favorites are walnuts, and then eating them plain is a really good snack. They have now a lot of individual packages of just like 100 calories of all these. Yeah, pistachios are a really good one too.
Right.
So you don't have to overextend on calories, because you're right. Like, you have too much olive oil, avocado, nuts. Now you have a lot of calories. Even though they're good calories, it can be a lot. So you just want to be mindful of those portion sizes, but there's iron in there, there's protein in there, there's healthy fats that will help to, you know, our heart healthy. Fiber reduces risk of colon and breast cancer. So I love walnuts especially, but really any of those nuts and seeds are good. And there's a lot of things you can do. Add into your oatmeal, baked goods, snacks, salads. You know, you can do some type of like nut crust, like on salmon or something. So there's so many different ways to add them in, and it's just a lot of benefit. But yeah, like to your point about the weight thing, those there'll also be like the trail mix packs that you get at, like, you know, the gas station, whatever, and some of those could be up to, you know, 400 or 500
Right.
calories.
Right.
So if you're someone who's wanting to lose weight, let's look at the nutrition label. Let's figure out, like, hey, let's get those 100-calorie nut packs, not the 500-calorie trail mix one.
And,
Yeah.
and in general, are you a fan of any of those apps that scan ingredients that tell you if they're additives?
Wait, what do you mean? Which one?
Yuka, for example. Have you ever used that much?
So yeah, I have not used it. I am asked about it a lot. So it's hard because it can share, it's opinion based, right? So it's not up
Right.
to date literature. So, you know, certain additives, people may not like them, or maybe it was shown in a lab or rat study at a really high dose. So it's okay to choose more whole foods. It's okay to not, if you're like, you know what, I don't want to do the chips or the Cheez-Its, you know, I want to stick to, you know, things that have less ingredients. That's okay. But that app does make cancer survivors in particular question things. We want to simplify it for them. Like, those additives are not giving you cancer. It's really, you know, what kind of diet do you want to have? Because if you're, you know, you're sitting down, you're having your sandwich and your slice of apples, and you want to have a small bag of chips with that, that is okay. It's not going to increase your cancer risk. Now, maybe you're someone's like, nope, I don't want to do chips, I want to take that out. You can, but I don't want to fearmonger around like a bag of
I
chips. You know, as long
can see that.
as,
I can see that.
yeah, as long as their diet is, you know, a lot of plant foods, lean dairy, whole grains, things like that. I usually say, what I say for my clients, like 200 to 300 calories a day of either like sugary food or chips, like salty. That's a really good balance. And then all the rest of those calories are to plant foods, nuts, seeds, whole grains, lean meats and things like that.
It's funny. By the time I see my patients and they've been on treatment, I'm begging them to eat. So
Yeah.
at that point of the conversation,
Yes.
you're saying like, whatever you want to eat, eat. Like you're 85 years old. I'm hearing you're only eating 200, 300 calories a day.
I
Like at this point,
know.
just eat something, anything, whatever you can stomach, just eat it.
Yeah,
Right.
and if
So,
you, yeah, it makes me sad. Yeah.
and I think at the same time, when you're on a platform like this where you have a younger audience, they want to know, what can I eat to prevent? So they're in a more privileged spot of being picky about what they want to eat. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of just good to know both of the situations of when they come. And then, you mentioned something that I thought was interesting about proteins. The whole conversation around processed meat versus unprocessed meat, and
Yeah.
the data between the two. That I feel like that's not a nuance that we talk too much about. Versus, I
Yeah.
go and I buy a hot dog from the local store and I see that it has 16 ingredients and it has nitrates and everything else. And I know that might cause an uptake in certain cancers, but the idea of going to the butcher and buying unprocessed red meat, that's a little bit more shaky from what I understand. We don't really know. Is that fair
Yeah.
to say?
So basically, it comes from the World Cancer Research Fund. And if you read through that data, that research, and they have the continuous update project. So this is public information. Anyone can go read it. There's a lot of studies they put together. And basically, it's a panel of doctors, scientists, things like that, saying, hey, what's increasing risk of cancer in humans? And when it comes to meat, the chicken, turkey, fish, seafood, we're good. Okay. The dairy, as long as it's lean dairy, because of the vitamin D, it can reduce your risk of colon cancer. The plant proteins, we're good. That's all good. So then the controversy in where the increase of risk of cancer comes in is processed meats and then red meats. The processed meats are going to be your hot dogs, your pre-cooked meats, your pepperoni, your deli meats, even the ones behind the counter. People are like, well, I'm maybe doing better because I'm going behind the counter. They're slicing it there. This is better. It's not. It's just a different way to get the same processed meat. So because of the high heat, the smoking, the nitrates, the sodium, the things that are added, like the preservatives added to those deli meats, is what increases risk of colon cancer specifically.
Right.
Okay. And it's relative risk. The more you have, the more it goes up. So if you can and you want to reduce risk of colon cancer, I would omit those processed meats. If you look really close at the data, they say it's not the minced meats. So when you go to like the fresh meats, so it's like, the raw chicken, the beef and all that, that's fine. That's not increasing your cancer risk unless you go over 18 ounces of red meat a week. And you could even shoot for under that. 12 to 15 ounces of red meat a week would probably even be better. Lean meat, so you don't get a lot of saturated fat. The only area they're not sure about is when it's nitrate free. When they say it's nitrate free, there's not enough evidence to show if like, hey, this is now a better choice. A good like rule of thumb is when you go to the store and get meat, does it say it's shelf stable for like a couple weeks? If that's it, that's a processed meat.
Right.
If it's like something that's raw, yeah.
No, exactly. It's if something can just sustain life that long, that's unnatural, right? It's not
Right.
honey. Honey's probably okay, one of the few things that could do that. But if your meat's doing that, that's interesting.
Right. Yes. So processed meats, and then the other one, that's one food, and that's and they said even those red processed meats are even worse, and that kind of comes from the heme iron. So the heme iron in red meats, whether it's processed or raw, may damage the colon lining. So that's why they want you to limit the fresh red meats, limit them, but then the processed meats completely take those out.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of different brands that will say natural and organic and all these special labeling things. But look, if it's that pre-cooked meat is processed, like just really try to not do that and spend a little extra time cooking those raw meats.
Right.
Yep.
And then you hit it on earlier that exercise is huge. And even now, when I have patients who are, let's say, younger, and they're on certain chemotherapies or immunotherapies, and they ask me, what can I do to make sure that this is a smooth journey through treatment? And the common theme is that people who can actually exercise through treatment, if you're able to walk a couple of miles, 2-3 miles a day, especially on the days you're getting your chemotherapy or immunotherapy, there are studies that show your side effect profile gets reduced by almost 50%.
Yes.
And so it's amazing how
it is, right?
people walking every day while they're getting treatment, do significantly better, and they rarely complain of side effects. And it
I
makes you
know.
wonder. It makes you wonder if you're, lucky enough to not be getting cancer treatment. Why aren't you walking a couple miles a day
Oh
every
my gosh, I
day?
know. I can talk about exercise forever and ever and ever. Like, it's the most important thing in every single way. Exercise not only will help reduce severity of side effects, not only does the study show that, but it's going to help to improve your gut health. You're going to sleep better. It's going to beat cancer-related fatigue. I mean, it's going to reduce anxiety, depression.
Right.
It's going to improve your circulation. So before your infusion days, you need to especially be like, moving your body. And my clients still come to me, and maybe your patients, they're not moving at all, so we just create small goals.
Right.
A lot of times people will say, hey, start, eat different or exercise. And so eat different, they think, vegetarian extreme, and all we want is just a couple more servings of fruits and veggies, and then we build on that. Same thing with exercise. If you're not moving at all, let's start with half a mile twice a week, and then let's build on that. And that's minimal. And so I've had clients who will build on that. They weren't walking, and then they end up walking 2 miles and they're through treatment, and they feel more energized. They'll have been, like I said, I talked about another client. She was doing treatment and then in bed for days. Once she started exercise, she no longer went to bed after treatment. Oh my God. And then she was able to interact with her family. So I think the hard thing is they feel tired. They feel tired, but it's kind of, if you move, you'll feel less tired. So it's that hard mental game, but the severity of side effects go way down,
It's
and it just helps you.
it's the whole idea of action breeds motivation, right? Where it's like you
Yes.
might not feel motivated to go to the gym, but once
Right.
you're at the gym, now that you've taken the action, the motivation comes. So
I know.
it's hard to start, but once you start, it gets going.
Yes, and small. I think people think, well, I gotta hit, if I'm gonna exercise, it's the gym 2 hours, 5 days a week. That's not what we're saying. We just need to start small and keep building. And when you don't feel like it, we need to. It really needs to be part of the prescription.
Right.
It's just
I,
like exercise. Yeah, it's so good.
it's absolutely one of those things. And to your point, I think one of the myths that people hear of cancer care is that once you hear the word cancer, it's over. There are stats, especially from Sears data, for example, that show the 5-year overall of all cancers is now close to 60%, a little above that. That means the majority of people that are being diagnosed with cancer are living 5+ years. And the reason that number matters in the world of oncology is because chances are when you survive 5+ years of a cancer, you're going to, ultimately die from something else that's not related to cancer.
Yeah.
If you're a 72-year-old and you get diagnosed with colon cancer and you've made it 5+ years, that likely means the treatment worked for you. Treatment doesn't work for everyone, but when it works for people, it works for people, and they go into a long-term remission. So that same 72-year-old who might die at 79, it might not be from colon cancer. It might be because they also had a heart condition, and it led them to ultimately have a heart problem. So we don't even know specifically what the cancer survival rate is just by itself. And you would assume it's maybe higher than 60%. And that data was collected years ago. And nowadays we have things like immunotherapy, we have things like CAR T therapy, we have things like targeted therapy. And an interesting conversation I often have with patients is, understandably, people want to plan their life, and they'll ask, hey, now that I have this cancer, doctor, how long do you think I have to live? And because I'm putting them on a new medication that's only been out for 2 years, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It could be a year, it might not work. It could be 15 years, it might work wonderfully. It's just one of those new frontiers in cancer care. So I think with that being said, people need to realize that you have this diagnosis, but one, you're here for the long game most of the time. There are cancers, don't get me wrong. Still, when you hear pancreatic cancer, it's really scary because oftentimes it's presented at stage 4, and pancreatic cancer is one of those where even the 1-year survival rate isn't that great. But in other situations where it's a woman with breast cancer, she could easily be living the next 30 years. And these are when changes start to be implemented in their lives. This is when they start to realize, like, okay, I need to eat a lot better.
Yes.
Obesity contributes to breast cancer. I need to get serious about losing weight. I need to start walking every day, or start whatever it is, exercise, put this in my daily routine. And it's kind of this weird silver lining that happens where their life switches, and now they become much healthier. So the idea here is, if we're really serious about cancer prevention, it's not just colonoscopies, mammograms, CT scans, which are important, but it's also like, what's happening every day? What are you choosing to eat for lunch? What are you choosing to eat for dinner? Are you drinking water? Are you sleeping enough? Are you reducing your stress? What are you
Yeah.
actually doing day to day if
Yeah.
you're serious about this?
Absolutely 100%. I love that so much. There's so much that you can do and that you can control. And a lot of cancer survivors or people with a family history want to know what they can control, and it is those things. And it's not a grains powder, and it's not a pill regimen, and it's not whatever new fad diet. Always the fad diets are latched onto cancer, but it's just more of those plant foods, more just like what you said, hydration, the sleeping, the movement. So it cannot feel as sexy to do those things, but
Right.
those are really truly the things every day that are important. I do know, like we see this with some of your patients, I'll have some of my clients say that, they were able to get through cancer. They were, able to beat cancer, and they are better. Like it did inspire them to like, okay, now I'm going to, take, my self-care. Now I'm going to get a new job that, is, lower my stress. Now I'm going to finally be, so they do make, like, even though it was so scary for them to have cancer and go through that, they say, hey, cancer gave me a different
Right.
perspective, and now I live my best life. This is not the way I wanted to get it, but now I'm living my best life. So it's nice to see that, they are inspired to do those things, because it makes a huge difference. You would be surprised how many people would go through a day and they just don't even have a fruit or veggie.
Yeah, no, you're not
You
kidding, because
know?
this is actually a conversation I've been having more often with my patients. And for example, even today, some guy was telling me, ever since I got this diagnosis, I've been eating a lot healthier. Like I've been eating more proteins. Like I try to have a hot dog every day. I'm like, well. I mean,
Yeah. Let's what about it? Some baked chicken. Let's
right.
start there instead. Yeah. Yeah.
And then exactly to your point, you ask people fruits and vegetable servings. People are having an apple and that's it, and people are maybe having a small salad at dinner.
Yep.
And from what I understand, you need to be having like a serving of just berries once a day,
Oh,
two
for sure.
servings of fruit a day, maybe another serving of like a different fruit, and then five different vegetables, whether it's cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower.
Broccoli.
That's a different family of different anti-cancer properties. But
Yep.
then your kale and your lettuce are leafy green, and they have a
Mm-hmm.
different property entirely. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
just did you eat your one green a day, it's like did you eat your multiple families of greens, because it's not,
Yes.
you have broccoli, you have kale, you have carrots, you have like squash.
Yes.
It's all over the place.
And the nuts and seeds and even whole grains. A lot of people
Yes.
will think gluten's bad. So whether you have, so celiac, definitely you want to avoid gluten. And some people have the non-celiac gluten sensitivity. But the percentage of those people with that have not increased over the years. People think there's like this epidemic of like, gluten sensitivity. Actually, when you look at the studies, the percentages haven't really changed. So unless you have those two conditions, more whole grains, the brown rice, the whole grain pasta, the whole grain bread, because there'll be more fiber, more nutrients, and more protein in those food products. And kind of like what you said, instead of one apple a day, it's like having some like 2 to 3 plant foods with your meals instead of building your plate around your piece of meat or protein, unless you're in treatment. And if you're in treatment, I need you to have protein, lots of it. But then beyond, outside of treatment, having all your plant foods and then adding in the lean dairy, then adding in the lean protein, things like that. Just a lot of people will think they have to go vegan or vegetarian to reduce their cancer risk, and they're bummed out about that. But that's actually not true. It's just 2/3 of your plate should be plant foods, and the other 1/3 is your meats, your dairy, your fats, and then if you want some dessert there. So it's not all plant foods. It's not all doom and gloom. You can still have your meats, just more
Well,
plants.
also spices, right? So that's another
Yes.
key thing, that your black pepper at the table. Maybe you don't want to touch that salt at the
Uh-huh.
restaurant as much, but the
Yep.
black pepper actually
Hmm.
has a lot of anti-cancer properties. And
Hmm.
then if you start to mix with other cultures, your saffron, your other spices that are coming from wherever it is,
Yes.
there's a reason. And I don't know. I have to fact check this one, but I hear that the cancer rate in India, which has more spice in their food, is like a fifth of the cancer rate in the United States. And it could be because they eat maybe more veggies in general, but
Yep.
it could also be that they're spicing their food at a higher frequency with different spices, whereas
Hmm.
maybe in Western diets we're not putting as much spice in our food.
No, I agree with you. And there's too much salt. Too much salt. Also, salt's an acquired taste. So the more you have, the more you want. The less you have, the less you want. So that's good news. Like sugar, we don't acquire that taste. We just come out liking sugar and we like it. But with salt, like if you lower your salt intake, then you'll actually like it less. And then to your point, like the turmeric, some black pepper will help those anti-cancer, those anti-inflammatory properties be absorbed better.
Right.
So like you'll see if you get like a bottle of like a maybe a premixed turmeric latte, you'll see there's pepper in the ingredients because it helps to absorb that turmeric better.
I've read
So
that. Yeah,
like
it
you said,
activates, it co-activates. Yeah.
yeah. So having a variety of spices also, even like those fresh herbs like cilantro, parsley, things like that. People skip over those. They're only a couple dollars, and it's a way to make your meal better. and also it's fresh. And then you're not always using a bunch of, you know, saturated fats like a lot of butter or salt to make your meals taste good. You're making it taste good with fresh ingredients and spices.
Right, right.
Yep.
Well, hey, this has
Yeah.
been awesome. I
Yeah.
actually really, really enjoyed this.
Yeah. This has been so fun. So, do you want to answer a couple questions?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Why don't you do that? Why don't you answer a couple for the audience? I think they would really love that.
So that, you know, one person's mentioning the Mediterranean diet being something that's kind of helped them go through the journey. And I think it kind of goes to our point, Nicole, where Mediterranean diet focuses on lean protein. It's pretty involved in different vegetables and fruits.
And
It's
healthy fats
involved
too.
healthy fats, olive
Mhm.
oils, nuts.
Mhm.
So it kind of makes sense, right? So
Yep.
it's not the standard American gas station diet where I'm picking up a Slim Jim and a Monster Energy. It's
Yeah.
more so that unfortunately, it does involve time preparing the food. So I know that some people might not have the resources, but at the same time, if you can get into that rhythm,
Yes.
Mediterranean diet is one of the key diets. Absolutely.
And I like about Mediterranean diet, it also talks about like family meals, mindful eating, movement and activity. So it's kind of that whole Mediterranean vibe. Besides the wine intake, I mean, everything about that Mediterranean diet is really good. Yeah. Yeah.
That's very true, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
One person was asking if chemotherapy destroys the good cells while trying to get the cancer under control, and that is true. That's why people will lose hair. That's why people will have diarrhea often with cancer, because first of all, there's plenty of different types of chemotherapies, and they all have different side effect profiles. But the cells that divide and grow the fastest are cells like your hair, cells like your gut lining. So when you're trying to kill the very fast to divide cancer cells, you're using a medication that kills fast cells in general, and that's often why you lose your hair. Most of the time, again, it's really chemo specific. You do get your hair back. Your gut does repair itself. There are things that we can do to slow down diarrhea. That's why you see your oncologist pretty frequently when you're on treatment, because all these side effects do pop up. But the one other thing that I want to encourage people with is 2024 cancer treatment is very different even from 2004 cancer treatment, which was very different from 1984 cancer treatment. If I talk to the doctors that have been in this field for 30 years, something as simple as nausea was not well controlled. So in the 1990s, you know, and this is probably where a lot of the fear of chemotherapy comes from. You're hearing stories of your grandparents who, if they got chemo and they're surviving, they probably got it 30 years ago, and they'll tell you I was throwing up every day. This other side effect was happening every day. But our anti-nausea medications have gotten so well.
They're so amazing.
That the majority of my patients don't have nausea even while they're on treatment. And if you are having nausea, you shouldn't think that that's normal. You should be communicating to your doctor like, hey, dude, what's going on? I've been throwing up 3 times a day. Is this what I should expect from this? And they'll say, no, we need to add another anti-nausea medication. And so, yes, chemo definitely has its side effects, but 2024 and onwards, we've gotten so much better at controlling those side effects.
Yeah. So I think having a really good doctor like yourself is something that's so important for a cancer survivor. So would you give them any tips on how they can make sure it's a good fit? You know, a doctor that, like, what should they be looking out to choose the best oncologist to treat them?
I think this is in general for a good doctor. You would be surprised the amount of people that don't listen. It sounds crazy to say that, but people don't know how to communicate effectively, and they're smart. They become doctors because they're obviously geniuses, but at the same time, they can't read between the lines. Sometimes a patient won't say clearly what's bothering them, right? And that's kind of your job as the physician to prod. This is the one time in life that it's okay to be very nosy, to be like, hey, tell me about this. Tell me about this. Like, you're not telling me the full truth. Are you actually having problems with, you know, urination? Some people are embarrassed because no one wants to admit that, but you're their doctor and you need to have them fixed. So are you having diarrhea? Like, if you're having 10 bowel movements a day, that's not normal.
What is your dietitian? We need to know that too, because there's different types of fiber. There's, you know, they TMI. I'm like, not TMI. Your bowel movements are a part of your treatment plan. They're a part of nutrition. Please share. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. So I think just feeling the communication pattern of the physician. Again, I don't know what it is, but with some people, even when I, you know, as a physician speaking to another physician, I have my preferences because I know that this surgeon, for example, is really good at communicating, and I know he's going to respond to my messages on time, and that we're going to get a plan going in an hour for this patient.
Wonderful.
Versus someone else who might be too busy and might not get to me, and that patient is more urgent and we need to take care of them a little bit more rapidly. So you start to realize that people who can communicate effectively, who can read between the lines, that's ultimately the person you want to have.
It sounds
Oncology
lovely. Yeah.
it's hard. In 2023, I think 25% of all cancer doctors in America retired. We were just an aging population
Oh,
of
wow.
physicians. And what that means is there's an insane shortage for oncologists throughout the United States. So it's becoming a little bit more harder to find cancer doctors, but at the same time, it's become a field that more younger physicians are drawing themselves to because of all the new treatment options that have come out. Because it's become a lot more of an exciting field. Previously, people didn't want to go into oncology as a field because the survival was not nearly what it is today.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, 60% of people now are surviving more than 5 years.
Just feeling more morbid back then, and now it's more hopeful and successful.
Exactly. And in the next 10 years, maybe we'll get that percentage to 70 or 80% of people surviving past 5 years. And so it then becomes a lot more of an attractive field because you need to take care of yourself too. If you're going to work every day and you're sad, you might not want to do that job for too long. But luckily for the last couple of years, I'm telling you, you definitely have your moments where your patients, fight their fight, but then lose. But then more often than not, I'm telling you, it has become a more optimistic field. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really, really good. I love to hear all the research. And then also it's really important to advocate, to tell the audience to advocate and find a doctor who's good at communicating, because that's just so important for them to hear that. Because I can tell my clients that have doctors who care and talk to them or even like hug them, they just say it makes all the difference in trusting them and just feeling at ease about their treatment plan.
Exactly. And again, doctors are also, I just told you 1/4 of the workforce is gone.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so
So that was just like ironic because that's wild.
If you were maybe the cancer doctor seeing 15 patients a day and you work at an institution that kind of runs your schedule, now they need you to see 25 patients a day. And what that means is you can't spend that half hour in that room anymore. You can only spend 15 minutes. So it feels rushed, but it's also a strain on the system. Like that's when you're that cancer patient and you're fighting your journey, you're thinking about your life. You're not thinking about how this doctor now has 60% more work to do because whatever institution he's working at is saying, hey, we have patients to see. And that's the thing too. It's if you're seeing 25 patients, there are 20 other patients that also have cancer that need this conversation. Otherwise, these people never get seen. So it's definitely a strain on the system. We'll see how artificial intelligence can maybe help speed up the workflow of a physician. That might be a silver lining to look forward to in the future.
That would be good. That's a lot of patients. So you're either not being able to stay with patients very long, or what? You're just working really long days and then you're worn out. I mean, it feels like a really difficult situation to be in.
Kind of. I think you have to develop a very efficient communication pattern.
Yeah.
You have to be very straightforward with what the plan is and make room for the most important part of the conversation.
Yeah.
So if you have
communication.
If you have 15 minutes with a patient, you're not going to talk about the game that just happened, which could feel a little bit cold, but you need to make sure they're doing okay. You're going to ask them about nausea, their bowel movements, their breathing, their fatigue, and you're going to try to, tell the plan in that 15 minutes. And so sometimes it could feel a bit rushed. But again, if the patient is getting everything they need and then they come back, you develop that relationship with them throughout that year that they're getting treatment. So maybe in that first or second visit, if the doctor feels a bit rushed, it's different. But then maybe that third or fourth or fifth visit when you're on autopilot and your treatment's going well, now the 10 minutes of the conversation are like, well, tell me about your family. Like, what do you like to do for fun? That's when it becomes a little bit lighter.
So things settle in once you have a few of those first points. So that's also nice for people to know
too.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And hopefully it will get improved and more oncologists or more doctors will want to go into oncology, especially with all the research. Why do you think there's so much research within oncology and not other fields? Why do you think that is?
That's a great question because cardiology, for example, also needs help. People. Here's the thing: if someone gets breast cancer and she's 50, again, she's going to have her entire community support her. She's going to have charities. She's going to have national research dollars dedicated to finding the cure.
Okay.
Whereas someone who's 50 who has heart failure because they've abused substances and they've ruined their heart because they've done heroin is not going to get that same love from society,
No.
even though drugs are
Correct.
an addiction, and it's sad what
Amen.
happens to these
You
people. And I wish
made
we
some
could say
good
these
points
things are
right
different.
now. Yeah.
But that person with heart failure can also die in 5 years, right? So I think cancer benefits from this extra romanticization of what it means to have cancer. There's just way more community support. I'm not complaining. I
Mm-hmm.
do feel bad for the other fields. I mean, I want to cure cancer. I want to get more research into
Yes.
cancer. But at the same time, you're right. We need research that's also dedicated to Parkinson's, that's dedicated to COPD, that's dedicated to PCOS, whatever it is. But
Sure.
it's just people, when they
Want
hear
to
that word, it's
run to
just a
help.
different weight. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of, I mean, there's so many, yeah. It's hard about that example you just gave of those two different 50-year-olds, you
Right.
know?
Exactly. Who are both maybe going to, have a bad ending in 5 years. But even with heart failure, we've made some strides. And again, with that woman with breast cancer, who's to say she doesn't live till she's 80? I've definitely had those patients.
Yeah.
They get diagnosed with breast cancer when they're 42, and I'm seeing them again at 76 because now they have lung cancer and they didn't
Yeah.
stop smoking.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I love to see there's more research. I love to see there's community and support. I think that just sounds really good. It's good for cancer survivors that, and if someone's newly diagnosed, there's so much more research and support and treatments that are coming out all the time. And that's really hopeful. That's really good news.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's if you ever look at a chart of an inflection
Mhm.
point, like for example, if you're trying to get followers on YouTube or Instagram,
Mhm.
that first couple of months you're only gaining like 15 followers every week, and it feels
Yeah.
frustrating. But then you hit that inflection point where all of a sudden some of your stuff starts to go viral, and now you go up this way instead of going up
Yes.
slowly. Now you hit that
Yep.
inflection point, you're going up this way.
Yep.
I feel personally that in the world of cancer research, we're
Yeah.
there now. In the last 40 years, we've been going up
That's so
slowly with
good.
research. And I feel like right here, 2024, 2025, this is when you start to see a much, much more rapid pace of cancer research. Don't underestimate AI. Part of finding cancer treatment is finding a needle in the haystack. And you can
Okay.
imagine if you're just a single person going through the hay trying to see the needle, it might
Okay.
take time. Whereas if you have artificial intelligence who's able to do things at God knows what speed,
Yes.
maybe we're able to find those different protein structures that work better with certain drugs, whatever it is, so that we can ultimately try to get better treatment quicker.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised in the next even 2 to 3 years we start to see some major, major movements in cancer treatment.
That's cool. I love that. And you're right. The AI works quick. Yeah.
Absolutely, dude.
You made
It's
a really good example. There's one person going through everything, and then AI can come in and get things done so much quicker and more efficiently, even without that error. It's just really nice.
I had a friend
Very
describe it. He works
positive.
at one of the pharma companies where they
Yeah.
have a three-dimensional protein structure of a
Okay.
cancer, and they're trying to get a pill or a drug to kind of go through the protein to try to break the cancer. And he's literally telling me he's the guy who's putting certain chemical bonds between the atoms on that protein structure
Okay.
to see if you could take a medication and allow it to make that bond, if it would ruin the protein and kill the cancer. And it's funny. He's literally talking about disulfide bonds. If you could put a disulfide bond somewhere, it could
Yeah.
ruin the structure of the protein. This is a human having to click on a mouse to look at a computer screen and click here and click here. If you have a computer doing that, you can do, again, not just a computer, but artificial intelligence with some
Mhm.
serious computational power. You could be doing that, what, a million times quicker?
Yes.
So
Yes.
if
A
that's
million
where we're
times.
at now, just imagine what's about to come out.
I know. Oh, this is so good. I love it. So much positivity. This is good. Thank you.
Of course.
Yay.
And
All
it
right.
was awesome talking to you as
It
well.
was so awesome talking to you. Do you want to tell everyone where to find you? Are you on TikTok too? Where are you at?
So on Instagram, I'm doctor.discover, and then on TikTok and YouTube, I'm trying to get more into long format. This is a perfect example. I like making short format
Yeah.
content, but I
Look
want to
at
get
us.
deeper into conversations
Yeah.
because now you're teaching me something and people benefit from this.
Yeah. And you're
So I've
teaching
been
me a
trying to
lot
grow.
too. This is
Right.
great.
We should do this again because
Yes,
I'll have
we
more questions
definitely
to ask
should.
about nutrition.
Yes.
And YouTube is also just Dr. Discover, all one word. Doctor spelled out and Discover spelled out. So
Perfect.
I'm going to hopefully be speaking to people in the nutrition landscape. I also like doctors that are in startups and are doing things that are non-traditional, not just
Ooh,
clinicians, people that are coming up with
fun.
product ideas. So I like hearing their stories, how they built their careers, where they think the future of medicine is going. that's the stuff. That's where the discover part from doctor comes.
Yes.
Like I'm trying to discover what's new in medicine.
That's awesome. Yay. Okay, so make sure. So you said you're on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok?
TikTok. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yay. And then we'll hopefully do this again and talk more because this was so much fun. We went way over and it was just a great time.
I didn't even feel that. You're right. We did go over.
Yeah. I didn't even know either. Well, thank you so much for joining. I'm gonna put his handle in the caption as well, and then we'll save it and we can share it for everyone to rewatch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
We
you so
appreciate
much.
it.
See you later. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.